So what makes a good fantasy football team? Does anyone really know? Yeah, you won your league. So what? I'm going to tell you about what the experts think are the best players, but also in the order you should probably draft them. So what's the most important position in the league right now? Quarterback. So here, quarterback. 1, Aaron Rodgers. Enough said.
Aaron Rodgers in 2011 in 15 games had 343 completions to receivers, 4,643 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only threw for 6 interceptions. All pretty good stats. Draft him number 1 if you possibly can.
Two. Tom Brady. Super Bowl last year, and there was really no problem with him at all. Still a solid pick for even next year. So go ahead and pencil that one in the same spot.
Tom Brady in 2011 threw for 5,235 yards, had 39 touchdowns, and only threw 12 interceptions.
Drew Brees. Brees is part of the Saints, and the Saints continue to win, and if you get lucky, pick him up right away.
Drew Brees in 2011 threw for 5,476 yards, 46 touchdowns, and only threw 14 interceptions. Solid pick right here, since he only has missed 2 games since 2004.
So round 2, one of the hardest positions to pick, probably running back. So this is where you should draft a running back if you haven't drafted a quarterback already. And if you haven't drafted a quarterback already, well, that's your own problem. So to start, go with Arian Foster. Arian Foster has not only been consistent for the Texans, but he's been kind of a leader on the team too. Not a problem if you draft him. You're probably going to win the thing if you end up drafting him.
Arian Foster in 2011 only played in 13 games. However, he rushed for over 1,200 yards and scored 10 touchdowns. Had he played in all 16, he might have rushed for his 2010 totals of over 1,600 yards and 16 touchdowns. This is why he should be your number 1 running back, because he can get it done.
And then, of course, if you can't draft him, solid pick, Ray Rice. And by the way, not only should men be paying attention to this, but women can play in this league too. So get with the program. It's 2012. But Ray Rice, a solid pick for the Ravens. Not only does he have the speed that you need, but he gets the job done touchdown-wise as well.
Ray Rice played in all 16 games last season and rushed for 1,364 yards, second in the National Football League. He also scored 12 touchdowns. Rice is what we call a workhorse back, and would be a great addition to any roster.
Then, of course, a safe pick. Sean McCoy of the Eagles can catch out of the backfield, and he has the speed as well. He's going to get you a lot of good catches, but he's also going to get you some good scores as well. Hopefully, your league is more about yards than others. But he will get you some touchdowns, but look for him to be one of your backs.
In 2011, LaShawn McCoy carried the ball 273 times for a total of 1,309 yards. He also scored 17 touchdowns. But what is impressive about him is the 48 catches and the 3 touchdowns receiving. Not a bad draft if you're able to get him early.
Next, you should probably draft tight ends. Why? Because I said so. Tight ends are hard to find. Owners, if you can't draft a good tight end, then you've got a problem. A tight end that just blocks only doesn't really do you any good. You need a good tight end, and he's probably the best out there. Rob Gronkowski of the Patriots. Good catching tight end right when you need him the most.
In 2011, Rob Gronkowski was the breakout star for the New England Patriots. Not only did Gronkowski help these Patriots get to the Super Bowl last year, but he had 90 catches and amassed 1,327 yards. Oh, and by the way, he got 17 touchdowns. This is why you should draft him as your number 1 tight end. Oh, and that guy that we mentioned before, who's his quarterback, might be a great way to pick up some points, owners.
Now, if you can't grab Gronkowski, though, there are a few others that aren't that bad either. Jimmy Graham, of the Saints. With a quarterback like Drew Brees, he likes to utilize the tight end. Make sure that if you can't grab Gronkowski, then you should probably grab Graham. Might even be a good idea to even draft Graham in the next round. You need 2, so that way you have a backup for your bye week. But at the same time, you need at least 1 good one, and Jimmy Graham isn't half bad.
Last season, Jimmy Graham of the Saints also had a breakout year. Graham caught 99 balls for 1,310 yards. He also got 11 touchdowns, more than double of what he had last year. Jimmy Graham, a great number 2 tight end in any fantasy football league.
Next, owners, go with Antonio Gates. Gates has been the rock on the Chargers for many years. Continues to be a strong player, not just at the tight end position, but they line him up as a receiver. The guy is built like he can play basketball. Draft him if you can't get one of the other 2, because let me tell you, it kind of drops off way down at the bottom. Don't be caught without a tight end.
Antonio Gates last season only played in 13 games, but he did have 64 catches. He also only had 778 yards and managed to get 7 touchdowns. Fantasy owners, he's still a great asset to any team, but beware, over the last 2 seasons, he has missed 9 games.
Next is wide receivers. Now you might think, why would I draft wide receivers behind a tight end? It's because that there are so many good ones, and they come up so big every week that it really doesn't matter when you draft these guys. But this guy, Calvin Johnson of the Lions, is the one that we all should pick up. Gets great yardage every week and doesn't have a problem with catching the ball. Matt Stafford's a good QB, and they're pretty much the nucleus of the team.
Detroit Lion wide receiver Calvin Johnson, better known as Megatron, caught 96 balls last season for 1,681 yards and 16 touchdowns. Johnson also played in all 16 games for the first time since 2008. This is why he should be your number 1 wide receiver.
Second, you'll go with what I think should be Andre Johnson of the Texans. Another Johnson. His quarterback is matchup, and there's no better 1-2 combo right now in the league. If you get lucky enough to get one of these guys, it can make up for a weak tight end if you didn't listen to me and draft one. But make sure that you end up drafting a good receiver like this Johnson here, because he'll definitely get you some points.
Andre Johnson in 2011 only played in 7 games. However, from 2007 through 2010, Johnson averaged at least 8 touchdowns and at least 9 games. So look for him to bounce back in 2012 as a good number 2 wide receiver on any fantasy team.
So third on the list is Greg Jennings. Greg Jennings has been one of the workhorses of the league for many years. Member of the Packers' Super Bowl winning team just recently, and still has a good chance of even surpassing one of these guys. I would say pick him up early, but also pick him up as a good second receiver as well. These are only the top 5 that you've got, so at least pick up the best ones that are available.
Greg Jennings, like many receivers in 2011, spent time on the injury list. Jennings only caught 67 catches and had 940 yards and 9 touchdowns. In 2010, he had 1,265 yards and 12 touchdowns and played all 16 games. Jennings, until last year, hadn't missed a game since 2007. However, this should be a year that Jennings makes a great comeback.
So what have we learned here? Well, we've learned that you should draft a quarterback first. Again, quarterbacks are the most important position in the league, so stick with that and you should be fine. In those leagues where you have touchdown-only leagues, then yeah, maybe you might want to get another player that actually scores touchdowns as opposed to just throws them. But you still can't go wrong with a quarterback. Touchdowns win the games, and touchdowns also win in fantasy. Running backs, then tight ends, then wide receivers. And why do I say that? Because running backs are hard to find. Draft them early.
Okay, so let's recap. You should probably draft a quarterback first, especially one like Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers. And then a running back like Arian Foster. And then, if you can, a tight end like New England's Rob Gronkowski. And then finally, like Megatron himself, the Lions' Calvin Johnson.
I'm a Sideline Professor, and this is what I think about fantasy football. Good night.